When I was diagnosed in 2007, I was at university studying graphic design. My first project after being diagnosed was called Verbal Hug. It was basically a box, a starter kit I designed which contained everything a newly diagnosed diabetic would need, from information to equipment. The project gave me a voice when the diagnosis still felt really raw to talk about. I thought I was the only one going through it until I met Alex. Welcome to Season 5, Episode 3 of Diabetes Squad. Alex is a brilliant designer who creates prompt cards and art prints, raising awareness of type 1 diabetes. Her work is always encouraging conversations and making our lives more livable. Today I will be exploring how Alex got to this point and how she gives a voice to our community. I'm so happy to have you on. I feel like we've been talking for a while and we finally both found a moment, well, just to have a chat, really. That's sort of the gist of the podcast.
I know. Thank you for bearing with me. I know I've been a bit...
No, you've been a busy
Time
bee.
flies.
It has. There's so many things that I want to talk to you about. Honestly, I am grateful that we are able to have this chat, as I, from a graphic designer point of view, have been admiring your designs for a while. I think it was probably about approximately a year ago, I think it was, that I came across your prints on social media. And I was like, oh my gosh, she gets it. I was like, she gets it. Exactly. And I was saying to my husband, I was saying to him as well, I was like, it's such a clever way of portraying the struggles of type 1 as opposed to being quite blunt about it, in a sense.
I think that was the crux of it. I can come to my diabetes story, but what I found the most difficult and what actually led to being diagnosed with clinical depression was that when I was diagnosed as an adult, so a late onset, and I was I'm a very social person, similar to you, I'm a designer, I'm a communicator, but every time I had a conversation about my condition, it would either end with people feeling, pity for me, or getting, what's the term I'm looking for?
Sympathetic?
No, the opposite. When people say, people would say, "Oh, should you be eating that, Alex?"
Yeah.
I can eat that because with modern insulins, but people weren't in the mindset of being kind of educated, so they would get resentful. That's the word, resentful. So every conversation I was having, instead of opening up, it was shutting people down, and I was just getting more and more angry and more isolated. And once I identified that was why I was feeling so crap about it all, I was like, right, I'm a communicator. Design is about solving problems creatively. And I actually first looked to propaganda. How do you get ideas across? Because I think diabetes is such a frustrating one because people know enough to be dangerous. It's everywhere. But they know it's so complicated that they know like half of it and a lot of it's wrong. So it's not just telling people about diabetes. It's almost like kind of getting them to unlearn what they know to learn new things. So that's why initially I looked to things like propaganda. How do you get crazy ideas across at a global scale? And then I kind of toned down. You could see I was a bit angry at this stage. And I looked to advertising and areas like that. And I was like, okay. So that's the first thing I started doing, was subverting famous artworks and just making them about diabetes, because I wanted people to see something and be like, yeah, I know that's a Mondrian. And I was like, hold on, that's not a Mondrian, and have it sort of double take. Yes. And for me, the way I did it was like I would produce a print a day for 100 days as part of Scotland's 100-day project, which is a brilliant thing to look up for. So I produced a print and a mini essay every day. I was learning about the condition and also kind of educating. And because it was done through the medium of art, people were in a place of curiosity and openness as opposed of that closed space. And it was completely transformational for those conversations and completely, saved my sanity, reconnected with people. And so I'm really glad that that's kind of what you and your partner kind of honed in on. It's that subtle kind of in through the back door way that is how it kind of opens the mind. Is what I'm trying to strive for anyway.
Because the one that I saw, the first one that I think I saw, was the Keith Haring inspired. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then I looked at it a little bit closer and I was like, they've got devices. I saw the devices because once again, it's not screaming at you, but it's also telling the viewer to take a closer look and just take a moment to engage and think, oh my goodness, there's something else subtly here that the designer's trying to tell you. And obviously the work that you do with text and image and graphical balance is like totally my thing. And I was just really fascinated by just portraying and educating is the sort of genre that I felt, because for non-diabetics as well, if you were to look at these prints, you'd be like, something's different, but let me just take a moment to understand what is different, and that I thought was done really, really well. I was like, yes, I get it. I was like, damn it, you're in Scotland. This is so annoying. I was like, why are you not in London? In the middle, at least the Midlands. But it was, it's pretty lush. And I know those prints are like sort of available on your website. You can purchase them and all those bits and pieces. So that's definitely something that I'll shout about as well. But so where you were in terms of your diagnosis, it was in your 30s, is that correct?
Yeah, I was 30. I was living my best life. I'd quit quite a toxic job. And it was kind of a year into working for myself. I was actually, when I was diagnosed, I was on my way to New York with a group. I was at the time running a nonprofit called Creative Mornings Edinburgh, which are these kind of events all over the world, actually. And there's one in London as well. If you ever want to look it up, it's really good. And it was the kind of annual, the 10-year summit. And my whole team we'd got a grant to get us all out to New York. And it was, anyway. So that was kind of the backdrop. But I'd been feeling completely knackered, usual thing. I'd lost 11 kilos in the space of 3 months, constantly thirsty, but it was a hot summer. Really explained it all away. But the thing that made me go get checked out was I couldn't make it up my own stairs. And I think it's those moments when I need a break halfway up my stairs. This isn't normal. And my sister always had low iron. So I was like, maybe I've got that. So I went the morning of the flight. I went to get checked out and the nurse couldn't find a vein. She had to use a children's needle. It was, lots of things were a bit strange. But I said, I've just lost 11 kilos this month. And she just said, what's your secret? And I was like, okay, well, I was like, I'm okay to fly. And she was like, you're fine. And then we were in the flight, taxiing down the runway. And that's when I got the call from my doctor who said, your blood sugar's through the roof. You need to get to hospital immediately.
Sugar.
And and then...
I mean, literally no sugar, sorry. But yes, oh no.
Completely, yeah. And I was just in such denial. I remember even a few weeks before Googling the symptoms and just being like, I'm not diabetic. I'm skinny as a rail. This isn't me. And even on the phone when she said that, you need to stop the plane. And I was like, I'm not stopping this plane. I'll go to hospital in America. And thank God, one of my friends had actually said before we took off in the airport, everyone got travel insurance.
Can you imagine if you didn't? Oh my goodness. It would have cost you a fortune. Absolutely.
It would have crippled me. It's actually, I was talking about this recently because I got to go to San Diego recently to present my companion cards at Diabetes Mine, which is this innovation conference. And a person told me there, because I'd never really saw the bills because it was all it was quite anyway. And someone told me it would have been upwards of $140,000. And it would have crippled us. It would have changed our lives. It's just completely nuts. So yeah, moments like that. So I buy that person lots of coffees.
Thank goodness thank goodness for your friend to say have you got travel insurance? Because a lot of people I know, obviously non-diabetics, wouldn't. They're like, I'll be fine. Yeah. But actually anything could happen. Anything.
I think if you travel to America, you just need insurance for so many things now.
Did you stay in the hospital in the States? Did you stay overnight? Oh, Lord.
Yeah, 3 nights in the end. And it was a whole dramatic, any longer and you wouldn't have walked in kind of thing, which was still I think that was, and this is kind of the beginning of my project. The whole unawareness of this condition started really with my own. I had no idea about it. That nurse had no idea about it, didn't recognize very recognizable symptoms. The people on the plane were reassuring me that not to worry, I looked healthy and that I wouldn't need insulin. And then all the way, and all these little things, it took until the third day in the hospital for me to be like, no, I know you're teaching me all this stuff with the insulin, but I'm going to do it without, because people said that I'm healthy and I don't need to. And I had so much unlearning to do, and it felt each time like it was a re-diagnosis moment. Absolutely. And so I think there was such an awareness around it, and it starts with my own. So I'm just I'm on this journey, not just on my high horse telling people what it is. It's just I didn't know.
I do agree with that. I think a lot of people that are producing content or design or awareness are on a self sort of learning, let me rephrase that, sort of unlearning and learning journey. I know for sure that I had so many misconceptions about diabetes / type 1 diabetes. I just thought, oh yeah, if you're diabetic, everybody takes insulin. Oh, it's because it's inherited. That was the biggest taboo that I had to cut through, because nobody else has it in my family. And I was like, no, somebody has to have it, surely. But absolutely no, zero. And that in itself took me, I don't know, about at least 10 to 11 years to fully accept that it's me, I'm the one, and it's not my fault as well. That was another one. Because you do sometimes think, especially if you speak to medical teams that may not be your regular medical teams, it's sort of like, I'm telling you how that insulin works, and I'm telling you how that works for me. And it's not always the other person's fault or somebody within the medical profession. It's just because they have to unlearn certain things or get on board with certain technologies as well, What about technologies? How have you adapted to those?
Well, in America, they didn't think my insurance would go through. So I got to my first 2 weeks on it was the vials and these ridiculously long needles. Oh, and because I was so skinny, I felt like they were going to go right through me. And it was, so I started with that. And then when I got back to the UK, they didn't, it's fun. Well, between countries, they don't trust each other. So you have to go through all the tests all over again. But then when they saw me pull out my massive needles, they're like, hold on, we've got something better. And they got me the little pens, and that already was just incredible. I self-funded with the Libra initially. And then, because my background is in, I work a lot in tech anyway, so I was obviously kind of interested in that. So self-funded, and then luckily the Scotland rollout, I got on the Libra very quickly. And then I had a pregnancy back in 2021. And I got on the Dexcom and then have stayed on that. And since November last year, I am on the Ipsomed closed loop, hybrid closed loop. So that's magic.
It is. I'm on the Ipsomed. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Lisa. Yeah. Do you like it? Do you like a little Tamagotchi?
It's so, you know what it was, what I find really great is I could just go, boo, and I could just show my arm off. And I put it on my arm. I don't know why. I just find it, on my arm, I could control it. I feel like if it was on my stomach or somewhere else, I get a bit weird about it. I don't know why. Maybe it's just my mind.
But I haven't tried the arm yet.
The arm is great because then you could just put your little device in your bra. Hello, there's my little leopard print for today. I know. But it's fantastic because I found with the Ipsomed, it took me a while to adjust from the Omnipod to a wired pump. I think for my brain, that was at least a week worth of talking to myself. But it's actually the control and the ratios is fantastic.
That's insane.
You're seeing results that are just what? I genuinely couldn't believe some of the results. But yes, it's just about adjusting, and it's about what works for you as well. So I'm on the Dexcom as well, but I might go back to the Omnipod. I'm not sure. I'll just see how it goes for the next couple of months. And then, they've put me on pause at the moment. But the technologies that are out there, and also I find, and I'm sure you found yourself, what works best for you for where you are at that stage in your life. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation, which I am ever so grateful for. I mean, did you struggle with the devices initially?
Well, it's interesting. I actually really wanted the Omnipod. I was like, I'm not going to like the tube. I have a toddler. I am extremely clumsy. This isn't going to work. But then when I went to this incredible conference in America, it was really interesting. I don't know, I haven't come across it as much here, but they're all on their DIY loops there. Which in the UK I haven't come across as much. So they all are really not into the latest Omnipod 5. It was all about the Omnipod Dash, because that one is kind of still open source. You can still do stuff to it, whereas the newest one is closed. And so it was really interesting. And then they were just talking about how it wasn't as clever, especially with women's bodies, not recognizing cycles and that kind of stuff. And so I was already starting to think, maybe am I going down the right path here? And then I didn't get a choice. I suddenly got the box of the Omnipod and I was like, what the hell is this? And initially I was really worried about it, but actually I've caught a few doorknobs, but beyond that, it's been fine. And similar to you, my HbA1c has dropped by 13 points, and that is in 6 months. It's just nuts.
Literally. You know what? It's crazy because I looked at my numbers last year, and last year I was sort of like late 50s, early 60s, which is a bit like, oh, okay, calm down. Let's look at those numbers. Yeah. But recently I'm literally in my mid 40s, and I genuinely couldn't believe it. I had to do the calculation, like I did the percentage. Then I went on to Google and found a HbA1c calculator just to make sure, because I was like, actually, I feel quite good. But it's fantastic, the adjustments and the advancements of technology. I'm stunned. I mean, in your diagnosis within the last, even 5 years, it's just come leaps and bounds.
It's mad. Yeah. No, it's a different condition already. But it's also really interesting. I don't know about you, but in Scotland got this 8 million funding push to get as many people as possible on the closed loop. And starting with women, and I don't really know the criteria, but what I find extremely exciting is so many of us on it. We were 18 people in our onboarding group. We were the biggest in Scotland, the first pilot.
That's big, yeah.
And then, but like last night, I went to this little meetup of type 1s, and it was mostly men. And they are a million years from getting it. They're 7 years. I mean, they don't have levers like procreation to pull. Right. And clearly lots of women don't want to have kids. And I think it's something a little bit Handmaid's Tale around.
Oh, yes. I like that reference.
You can have this as long as you are going to procreate. And I find that it's really weird, but they have to have quotas somehow. But I do find this access to tech is such a big thing.
I think especially I've noticed it in my day-to-day job as a teacher. I feel like kids in themselves are getting the technologies really quick, which is fantastic because they are teenagers. But at the same time, they're not learning the basics. So, for example, as we know, sensors, pumps, they can also do their own thing now and then, especially when you've got a new transmitter and it just goes a bit crazy. But there are kids that don't even know how to finger prick. And then if anything, they don't know how to put those numbers into their PDMs so it sort of syncs back up. Yeah. So there is a slight, in my professional opinion, from what I've seen, is young people getting it, fab, absolutely, go for it. But at the same time, just learning the basics of how to see trends or how to prick fingers or how to even test for ketones is something that within the UK, I don't think they're doing as much. From what I've seen, I might be wrong.
No, I mean, A, they're so lucky to have you, those kids, someone who's got the condition. But B, it's interesting. I'm actually speaking with a doctor at the moment. He's developing a sort of a toolkit to support people who have gone through DKA after illness, because people have completely forgotten how to take care of themselves because they just go on the closed loop. So I think there's definitely when it goes wrong moments, which probably aren't explored enough.
I agree. So talking about this season, this season's all about motivation. So we've looked at things like ambition, resilience, and we're speaking to people in terms of what has given them the motivation from going from, say, for example, I've been diagnosed and then I've changed my career totally. But in terms of the work that you're doing, literally, what gives you the motivation to go to all these places, such as overseas, talking to people, producing these prints, all the work that you're doing? What kind of gives you that motivation to just get it done? Let's go.
It's a really good question. I think simply the word would be connection. My soapbox is really around, well, the stat that 1 in 4 adults in the UK experiences diabetes burnout, which is characterized by suddenly just the fact that you can never put this condition down, coupled with the fact that lots of people don't get it and the isolation that creates. Some people just like, I just need to, I like some people start to just literally kind of pretend they don't have it, that they'll still take some insulin, but stop carb counting and that kind of stuff. And as you know, if we don't have an insulin for over 7 days, there's a strong likelihood we won't be here. And therefore, even when you stop taking care of yourself and that care reduces by 20%, whatever, is what leads to the complications. And when I talk to people who don't care about diabetes, but care about other things, I talk about how, and this stat is now about 10 years old, but the UK spends £25,000 a minute on diabetes, and that's not on the tech, it's not on the insulin, it's on preventable complications. And therefore, I believe a lot of people say, well, yeah, but all these pumps, that's going to change everything. But if someone's so burnt out that they can't get out of bed, there's a strong likelihood they're not wearing the sensor, they're not wearing the pump, maybe they haven't done a set change, so many things like that. So that's my whole soapbox is about addressing the mental toll of the condition and helping people feel less alone. And this kind of idea of if people can start to identify why they're feeling like this, they can start to work on it, as opposed to just coming back to numbers and looking at the spikes and where it's wrong and how badly they're doing and how that just kind of cycles. So, I guess, sorry, that's very roundabout, but that's genuinely for me why I'm doing more on this. I'm at a point where there's a lot of momentum behind my work, and I've actually carved out the next 3 months to finish developing what I'm calling the companion cards, which are this toolkit like this.
Yes.
Which is a toolkit, a card-based toolkit to help navigate the highs and lows of living with type 1 diabetes. And this product kind of originated after my first exhibition. So as I explained, for me to come to terms with this condition, I created an artwork and a mini essay about the condition and kind of culminated back in 2019 in an exhibition with about 84 pieces of installations and artwork. And it was really all about awareness.
Yeah.
And then my journey could have ended there, just kind of dispute. I felt good about it again. I owned my condition. But what happened at that exhibition is what completely transformed it. So my usual because I'm in the kind of creative scene, my usual crew came along, so that lot, but also lots of new people. But what was really interesting was someone who arrived while I was still hanging the last prints. And you know the stress when you're kind of finishing up and someone arrives early. You're like, excuse me, rude. But this guy was just shuffling about, and he was quite disheveled. This really strong smell of cold cigarette. I was just like, is this just a punter here for the free booze? I feel really bad. That was the first thought I had. I was just like, he looked really out of place, which says a lot for kind of the art scene, doesn't it? Sometimes. And he came up and then he's like, oh, is this a diabetes show? And I was like, oh, yeah, it is. And it's like, oh, it's not quite ready. I said, okay, I'm really sorry. And he went outside, and it was November, and it was really cold. And he went outside and sat until it was ready. And then the show began, and lots was happening. But then I noticed him taking a photo of every single piece of artwork. And then I went up to him and just was chatting. Oh, sorry about earlier, I wasn't quite ready. And he said, don't worry. And then he was like, he said, your art says what I don't have the words to say. And then he kind of told me this whole story. He's had the condition for 20 years. He lives on his own. He doesn't go to his he was only on still injections, didn't have a sensor, nothing. And he just completely cut himself off from everyone. Wow. And for him, coming from Glasgow to Edinburgh was a huge deal. He'd never really, he doesn't really leave his home, but he was compelled to. And he'd gone from being the victim to be but now I have these photos of the artwork and I'm going to show them what diabetes is truly like. And it was okay, someone is now using my work for themselves to kind of transform how they relate to their condition. And for me, as a designer, those are those moments when you're okay, this is bigger than me. And that's for me where the project went from simply building awareness to this is about resilience. This is about people kind of owning their condition and creating their own kind of route to acceptance, because it's completely different for everyone. And that's really where the project lives. So these companion cards, initially, I thought they would just be about someone newly diagnosed to come to terms with it and to kind of learn and share with other people in a way that was way more fun than a simple leaflet. But now it's more about anyone who's feeling overwhelmed by their condition. I get a lot of people who are, veterans, have had the condition for over 25 years and are just like burnt out, and it's revisiting it like that. And basically what I'm working on is these. You can use them on your own, but they also I've been working with a game designer for it to also become a toolkit to use in groups.
Yes.
So potentially in an education setting or in diabetes camps or in these kind of, sometimes in clinics they bring adults together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what I'm working on now. And that's kind of my drive at the moment. When you have a project that won't die, and every time you do something,
it's a good thing. Yeah, but it keeps maturing. It keeps developing. And what I love, the essence is about giving diabetics who have lost or muted their voice to have a voice. And that speaks volumes, because burnout doesn't necessarily happen by, but once you've had it for 5 years, once you've had it for 10 years. Mm-hmm. No, it doesn't. Everybody's journey is totally different. And what I really got from these cards, which I will be purchasing when they're available, is at schools, especially because young people, like teenagers, they don't want to talk about anything, let alone about their medical condition. But these are a fantastic way of communicating through the safeguarding channels that all schools have, that this is how I'm feeling. But during the times when you are overly stretched or stressed, i.e. exam season is around the corner, and that's usually when the stress makes your sugars go a bit loopy. Yeah. But the cards and the story that you said about that gentleman who had travelled in order to get to the exhibition, God knows how long he'd been feeling burnt out. You just don't know where people's mental health is, especially when it's been affected by a chronic condition, and which I think is beautiful how you're addressing those individuals and giving those people, including myself, a voice.
Thank you. It's really a funny space as well, because lots of people aren't comfortable talking about mental health. So a lot of my work is trying to make things tangible really quickly.
Yeah.
So it's actionable. So the way it works when we're in a group, so I don't know if the video is actually, when you share this, if people see the video, but so basically these are all the cards, and they're in 5 different sets. And when you play the game, you lay them out and then you pull a prompt card. Yeah. So maybe this one was that one. Frustrating thing about diabetes. And then we count down, and there's like 6 cards on the table, and people point to the one that represent that. And it's just, and then everyone shares. And why it doesn't turn into a pity fest is then you pull another prompt, and then there's a momentum to the game to a certain extent. So it kind of pulls stuff out, and then people after the session clock the people that like, oof, you've really been through this, and can kind of share. So my day job is I run like innovation workshops. So I love creating any kind of environments where people are collaborating in different ways and kind of problem shooting together. So I can see an arm to these, maybe have companion card evenings or whatever, where people can kind of run these and just connect with the people in their cities and stuff. Because I think that's as a connection, like finding someone who's experiencing something similar to you at the same time is just like so invaluable.
Absolutely. Because you can learn from each other, and you can learn through their experiences. I think that's the key. It's not a case of solving a problem or solving an issue that may have arisen due to diabetes. It's just about hearing it out and thinking, oh my God, I'm not the only one who felt like this. Like, it's not just a me thing. And that is the essence of bringing sort of visual communication together and starting conversations and dialogues. And that is super important, I believe, because as you know, it's very isolating being diabetic, unless you have, if you have a partner or a parent or a best friend who can understand all the beeps and the alerts, they still only get it to a certain degree. They don't fully understand the fact that you've had to wake up in the middle of the night to have a hypo treatment, and it takes you another hour to get to bed, or you have to be up the next day and get to work. Like, it's a whole series of events that somebody else gets. And I think that's beautiful. I think that in Percy speaking, when you're talking about these cards, the one that you pulled up was the one which has like the hand and it says prick.
The pricks.
Which I particularly like that one. But that is it. Like, I hate people pricking my finger, especially if you go to a hospital. I want to do it because I want to be in control. It's my thing. I want to do it,
Yeah, we're all control freaks.
Yeah,
I feel all tight ones. Do you know, I have a funny story about the pricks one. So actually in 2 days, I'm going down to a hospital in Scotland, in Dumfries and Galloway, who have purchased 42 of my prints.
Cool.
But we've done it basically as almost like a consultation. Like, we've picked the artworks depending on the rooms and the emotions we want to elicit and the conversations we want to encourage. So in the waiting room, it's more ones which are a little bit funny, like high all day, or like showing that we get it, like the high then low, high then low, high then low one. And then in the corridor, as you're walking with the consultant to the room, you might, or the nurse to the phlebotomy room, you might be feeling a bit nervous or whatever. And there we've done the whole wall of the 42 factors that affect your condition, just to remind also the doctors, this is a really complicated condition. It's not your patient being stupid. There are a million things at play here. Well, 42 things at play. And then, but my favorite is in I didn't, because they picked this one, I didn't think they would. The phlebotomy room, which is a room where you get pricked all the time. They put the pricks one. So there's a giant pricks one as you walk in. And apparently everyone loves that one and everyone has a laugh. And then in the consultation rooms, it's more about mental health. And that's what the doctors are trying to encourage, making it okay to talk. And this is where I think my product will potentially evolve in that space, to try and, in 20 minutes, how do you enable, the consultant and the patient to, build enough rapport to talk about what truly matters to them, and also enable the consultant to also check all the vitals and that's okay. So, but a lot of the consultants don't address the mental health as much because they don't either have the language or a way to do it rapidly that doesn't feel forced. So we're kind of looking at, is there a space for these companion cards to try and support that conversation?
Absolutely. And I think the idea of also the National Health Services, or when you do have your appointments, being restricted to a certain amount of time as well, I think knowing the patient and what they're going through. So being aware of what's happening in their lives as well as all the vitals is important, but then sort of having the capacity to put 2 and 2 together. The reason why my sugars are always dropping at this particular time is that at that particular time I'm having to do this particular dissertation, or I'm having to drive for a long period of time, or whatever it is. And that's the reason why at that particular time this is happening to me. And it's as simple as that, because it's your routine doesn't always align with your diabetes. Despite the fact that you might be on like a closed loop, a hybrid loop, you might not be on any of these things. It's just about finding that always. It's about the balance, which I do struggle with on certain days, personally speaking. And you sort of look at your numbers and you think, I have no idea why you've done that. I've got nothing.
200%. I feel like diabetes is Groundhog Day. I haven't made a print of it, but like you can have 50 years on it or 2 days, and like sometimes it's just
I always say I refer to her, I refer to it as a she. It's a her. So I was just like, I'm just like, she just wants to do whatever she wants to do. And then sometimes because we have to change our cannulas every 2 days, and sometimes I'm like, oh, let me just wait another couple of hours. What's the worst that's going to happen? And then she constantly beeps at me, And I'd literally be like, I know you're beeping, but you've still got insulin in you. You could wait another hour. But it is a case of, have you found it that you're on a level now with your diabetes where you are almost companions, friends? What's your relationship like with your diabetes?
Oh, that's interesting. I've never thought about it like that. I know Jen Greaves, she talks about, it's in the back seat. She's driving and it's in the back seat. I don't know. It's kind of this ambient thing that I swim through.
Nice.
I haven't given it a form. I'm less pissed off at it. I used to do like an annual thing, like with my Instagram is kind of almost like a timeline of my condition, of me coming to terms of it. But the first two diaversaries are so angry. Yeah. And then there's this kind of one which I took from the White Stripes, like, I got what I got all despite you, or something like that. Or something like that. There's something like, okay, this is kind of mutual. And then the last one, the fourth year one was about that we're all different and we all have a different way of kind of. Yeah. But I think it's my favorite print is the one which is actually the logo of Diabetes by Design, which is the Mondrian one, because I think it's all about striving for balance. But like yesterday, I could not shift to 14, and for me that's very high, and was really, really frustrated about it. But I think I've mellowed a little bit, and it's kind of this. Yeah, I think you forgive yourself as well, because last night I was with someone who lives and dies by every number, and I used to be like that. Yeah. And now I'm also a little bit like, you also need to zoom out a bit. I really like, is it Daniel Newman? I can't remember his name. He talks a lot about like, it's just a number, it's information, not judgment, and to kind of zoom out. And also, I don't know, I also know that Libra and Dexcom, maintain their market leader position because of accuracy. Yes. And then therefore sometimes they smooth the data. And so sometimes the data you're being fed is about pleasing shareholders more than your blood sugar. So I don't know. I think, sorry, that was a bit cynical. Agree. But of course, they are corporations, they're companies. Let's be real. That's exactly what they are. So sometimes even with me, when I kind of have my numbers, despite the fact they might be, I would say, in rage, or sometimes they might not be in rage, I still have a weird sense of the technology is wrong. I'm going to prick my finger. And I really shouldn't be doubting the numbers. But there's something in my mind that just says to me, just prick your finger, Manisha, see what happens. Is it the same? Oh, okay, it was. Well, sometimes I'm like, oh my God, that is so wrong. Yeah. And sometimes I'm in disbelief. I'm like, is the technology trying to make me feel better about my life? Is it trying to like persuade me that everything is okay? But it is a sense of, still for me, and I don't know about yourself, I still want to be in control. And that's something that I have definitely struggled with. The element of, yes, I've got the tech. Yes, I've got all my medical team on board. Everybody's great. But I want to be in control. Have you struggled with that? I gave birth in 2022, and it was so, I had to fight to not be induced at 37 weeks. And I had to fight every week. So it wasn't an enjoyable thing going into, it was very much, I had to advocate for that. And then, you're seen every 10 days. I don't know how it is in England. Yeah, so every 2 weeks, yeah. Yeah, so it's incredible, the level of care. But then when I arrived in the labor room, I had a trainee midwife who was like, oh, what's that on your arm? No idea about diabetes. And panic. And it was just a sense that, as a vessel, is so important that we keep you healthy. But when we get to the moment when it's going to be expelled out of you, and I had to fight, we had this decision that as long as I was okay and conscious, I would manage, because I was still on pens. Yeah. And then my husband would then be the next person. Yes. But there was a moment where I had something like 6 clinicians around me pressuring me to go on the sliding scale. And it was really intimidating. You're lying on the, pretty much literally, naked. Yeah. And they're all standing around you saying, you need to do this. And I think there's this huge kind of advocacy you have to do and
Yes.
be in control. That's what I think is so important. I think as a diabetic, you only realize it. I think I really realized it once I went out for like a weekend with some non-diabetics and really good friends, like uni pals. But and just realizing how like controlled your life is when you arrive and they're just like popping beers and sweets as a snack, and you're like, I need to bolus right now. I can't just do that. Or just like it's, I think it's moments when you step out of your life and you just realize also how controlled, like, you know, just little things like I've always got sweets right next to me, or
Totally.
you know, all these kind of things. So I think, yeah, you kind of notice, that we are a level you need that level of control because, you know, you need to control your environment to control your blood sugar.
You know, you're not the first one to talk about the sliding scale horror, especially not in this season, especially. But there is lots of reasons why, as a woman or a woman that is pregnant or trying to get pregnant, whatever the situation is in terms of, you know, where you are with family planning, to be aware of, they will use their profession in terms of advising you that by this amount of weeks, we're going to consider this. By this, we may put you on this injection. We might do this or whatever it might be. And of course, they know what they're talking about. But at the same time, you know your body, you know your condition, you know your numbers as well. And I think for me especially, I'm all up for having a conversation rather than being told. I think that's the difference. I want to learn. I want to educate myself. Why is it at 37 weeks that you would recommend we get the baby out? Or why is it that you're putting me on this, whichever medication you are, or asking me not to take, say, metformin? I had to stop taking metformin at 12 weeks. But rather than saying do, I am that person who likes to ask, but why? You know, that's all it is. I'm not protesting. I just want to understand.
But it's,
you know,
I think you're right. And like, but so many people don't feel like they can, and you're feeling vulnerable. But I think in the end, it was really difficult. But then I was having this really an obstetrician. You know, she was she wasn't even looking at my numbers and telling me how to live my life, and my numbers were excellent. And she was like, no, it's going to come out at 37. And even once, like, I was leaving and I'd managed to push it to 38 weeks or whatever, or 37, I can't remember. And a midwife ran after me just to tell me, it's like, you're healthier than, you know, regular patients without diabetes. You need to fight this. You need to, you could go to full term. And it was just like, you're in this space where you're trying to, like, you know,
be zen,
everything, all the good kind of hormones, and someone's telling you fight for this, and I was just like, I appreciate that she did that, but it was also a lot, you know, when you're already fighting for yourself. But yeah, I think there's something definitely at that moment of control,
or just knowing where you stand. I think that's another thing. So speaking about what's up and coming, so you've taken some time out and you're working on your project at the moment. Would you like to sort of showcase that and let our listeners know sort of what's in the pipeline?
I'm hoping to launch the companion cards this summer in a Kickstarter. Basically, this is a toolkit that is, you could have it for yourself if you're living with type 1 diabetes and just want you know, almost like a refreshing way to connect with your condition, maybe learn new things. But it can also be something to give to those allies who want to learn, but you don't want to educate them. And then equally, if there's any listeners who kind of consider themselves like diabetes educators or are in those kind of roles where they bring people together around this condition, this toolkit is designed to really rapidly elicit like meaningful conversations. And like, this might be a bit twee, but that wasn't the plan when I came up with the companion cards. It was, for me, the word companion to your condition. But like, honestly, when we've run a few of these focus groups, like it was a recent one I did was like a Tuesday night and no one was really chatting to each other initially. And then within 5 minutes of playing the game with the prompts, like the room was completely alive and people were just sharing incredible stuff. And then we couldn't get them out. It was Tuesday at 9:30 and we were like, guys, let's go. So really, I feel like it transforms like strangers into companions, and suddenly you get that kind of support. So yeah, dedicating the next 3 months to getting this off the ground and hopefully into people's hands, because it's been really exciting to see people already play with the prototypes and what they do with them. Some people just take one card and tape it to their fridge for their flatmates to see, you know, the one that says, yes, I can eat that.
Yes.
Or just have one in their handbag or their bag, whatever, to remind them that they didn't do this themselves. This is, you know, we're all doing our best here. There's a lot of humor. So the goal here is they're short, sharp, and sweet. Yeah. They're grounded in medical truth, but written in accessible language. And a little bit funny, hopefully.
And I just think that humor is the best way to communicate the condition, which at times is not humorous, for sure. And it is, you know, a serious condition. And there's a lot of misconceptions that you're addressing through the visual communication, and you're trying to get it across, but also making the imagery, making the designs relatable to non-diabetics. So it's not specialist to, say, us. It's pop culture. It's what is accessible and seen by others, but translated into the language that we get on a daily basis, which I think is fantastic. And that's what makes it inclusive. That is where you've ticked the inclusivity sort of like tick box, you know, and just for everybody to get it. I absolutely love them. I was thinking in my mind, I was like, when I get them, I want to put them in like a massive, like a frame. I'll probably make the frame because, you know, the sizes, I'd rather make it myself. And I want it to be sort of, as soon as you come into our house, just literally as soon as you walk in, just on the wall, like opposite the door, so people can see literally this, we are open, we're welcoming, and also start your visit with a giggle, like, yeah, you know, because I just think there's something about it where I want people to be aware of what we are or what we go through. But like you said, I don't want people tiptoeing around like, can I take a bottle of wine over? Yes, you can. Thank you very much. Can
make it two.
Make it two. Thank you. Well, not at the moment, but in a couple of months, yes, for sure, you can bring the wine over. But even things like if you're going to bake me a cake, thank you very much.
Yeah,
I'll have a
just let me know what's in it.
And oh, of course, because you said it's a startup as well, and we'll share the details as well. And I think it's
so
important.
It's all self-funded for now as well, and that's kind of been by design, because I think in the mental health space, I find it a bit, because I had been approached by some pharmaceuticals and things like that, but I think the mental health space is such a space that, I don't know, that I think initially wanted to keep it kind of independent and then see what collaborations I kind of continue with in that sense. So the goal is to make these accessible as well, so they won't be too expensive. Similarly, my artwork, which is also purchasable on the website, is all made in the UK with like archival inks and like really nice materials, and I've, you know, tried to make it as accessible as possible while not have me pay to send them to people, pretty much. So
no, but I think that's extremely important, because it's really important as a project which is as personal as it is to yourself. You want to also be able to show it off, sell it to a certain degree as well, for people to have it as a tangible object or a print. But also, you don't want the big boys to be making the coins, and that's absolutely fine. That's the purist in you, absolutely.
Totally.
Is there anything finally that you would like to say to, say, newly diagnosed diabetics, especially at the moment the numbers are going up with more young people being diagnosed with type 1 at various stages in their sort of younger lives, their teenage lives, or, you know, just as they get to university? What sort of advice or what would you like to say to them?
I would probably say that it does get easier. It might not feel that way. I think it's hard when you felt that if you have tried to let people in, they just haven't got it. But I would try to not be burnt by that, because I think finding someone who does get it is just like a balm for the soul. So to keep trying to find those communities, like listening to Diabetes Squad and these kind of spaces for diabetics are just so invaluable. and maybe say you're in great company. I feel that people who have this condition have to have like such resilience and also such awareness of other people, which I think is really, really important. So yeah, I mean, it sucks, but you're part of a cool club now.
I agree. And also, I find that most, if not all, diabetics are quite funny. No, it is. I literally do find it. I mean, which other condition is there where if you have got a low, you could literally eat a bag of Haribos? Well, not a whole bag, but you can have a mini bag of Haribos. So there is a sense of humour, which I think also brings us together.
Yeah. And you're right. And it's, yeah, I think a lot about my project is getting the tone of that humor right, because so much of the time diabetes is the brunt of the joke. Whereas the funny bit, like I find I think this isn't my joke, but I just remember reading it somewhere. Someone was talking about how, you know, we kill ourselves to say how important this condition is and how deadly it is. And then we treat it with Haribo. How do you take that seriously? But yeah, no, so I think, I think humor is the way to openness. It's the way to understanding. And yeah, because people feel like they need to know everything all the time nowadays. I mean, I'm probably similar because it feels like we can know everything because everything's at our fingertips. And therefore, when we are told that what we know is wrong, our first reaction is to close. And I think, humor kind of opens that door.
Thank you so much to Alex for sharing her experiences with type 1 diabetes and literally her ongoing dedication to do with the projects that she's been working on. What I love about her design is the magic that she creates through visual communication, and I truly feel that it represents our voice in text and image. Alex is a fantastic designer, so please go and check out her website and her socials. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. Once again, it is written and produced by myself, Manisha Vidgama, and it's a Depictor production for Diabetes Squad.